Hello, everyone. I'm Father Alexander Hart, rector of St. John the Divine Episcopal Church in Sun City Center.
And I am the Reverend David Marshall, rector of All Angels by the Sea on Longboat Key. Happy New Year, Alex.
Happy New Year, and not ecclesiastical New Year or liturgical New Year, but happy
Yeah,
calendar Year.
the real New Year.
The real
Yes,
New Yes.
the real New Year. Here it is. We
Mhm.
have I think it's 14 more seconds of daylight now than we did at Christmas. So, are you spending your 14 seconds of daylight in good
I'm
ways? It's
using it wisely. I'm using it
good.
wisely, gathering all
And
the vitamin D that I can.
Nice. And this is when people up north get mad because, it's sunny and I am wearing a jacket. It's 72. It's great.
It is beautiful, gorgeous right now.
It
So
is.
this is a bridge between where we are now bridging into a whole new year because
Mm-hmm.
you're watching this, Dave is on vacation. He has left me behind again, even though he is going to my father's homeland, the Dominican
Yes.
Republic, on
And
a
your
cruise,
mother's
and my mother,
homeland.
Puerto Rico. Yeah.
Yes. Going to Puerto
So
Rico.
this was poorly planned on your part. I could have been a good guide for you.
Um, I'm pretty sure at some point I invited you. But then that's when Christy made that face and said, I think it's sold out.
Yeah. Well,
So,
that's the
you know,
problem. But
yeah.
yeah, so we are recording some extra episodes here as we get ready for this new year. And this is for the Sunday before the Epiphany. So this is that second Sunday after Christmas, which would be January 4th. So I'm excited because not everybody celebrates the Feast of the Epiphany in that way on the Epiphany. Not everybody has a service. We do
Mm-hmm.
evening prayer with potluck. But you are able to use the readings of the Magi coming to visit Jesus on this January 4th. So this is for you, as well as there's some other readings attached to this.
There are. So we're going to be reading Matthew chapter 2, verses 1 through 12, which I think is virtually the entire chapter. And it is a story that people know really, really well. And that can be a challenge for preachers, and it can be a challenge for those who preach with their lives, because like Alex and I were talking this morning about, are we worried about repeating ourselves? And Dabney, our bishop prior, he had said what to you about repeating yourself?
He said it's okay to repeat yourself because not everybody may be listening or ready to hear it the first time, or the second time, or even the third time. So we need to reinforce in our preaching, in our teaching, and in our spiritual examples exactly that.
Yeah, yeah. So Matthew is the only gospel to tell us about the Magi. It is the only reliable written record that we have of this actually happening. There is a revelation of the Magi. It's hard to date what that document is. Many people believe, myself included, that that was the document that Matthew had used to write chapter 2.
Mm-hmm.
Others would say, no, it was written in the mid 200s around the cult of the Magi that Matthew had made popular. And then I would suggest, well, then where did Matthew come up with the story? But this is, it's the whole thing is the greatest story ever told. And this is one of the weirdest stories ever told about what's about to happen.
I use the word, I appreciate that you use the word weird because this is one of those things that is a strange occurrence if we forget a very important detail,
Okay.
which is that Jesus's birth may have been prophesied to the Jewish people, the Israelites.
May have
But
been.
it was, excuse
Thank
me.
you.
It may have, we may have think of it as, only to them, but it wasn't only to them
I see what you're
because God's prophecy, God's wonder and power and message leaks
saying.
out to everybody, right?
Yeah.
And Jesus
Yeah.
is even clear about this later on, that, he's come to the house of Israel first, but not only to them, the Gentiles will hear of this. And so this is the first time that the Gentiles are in the story very early, right? And so somehow the Magi have heard of this prophecy, somehow the
Mhm.
Magi have heard of it, and they feel it's reliable enough that they are going to go see it through.
Yeah. I am also not going to rule out that the Magi are so I keep referring to it that word. You might know them as wise men. And so if you're driving along, if you're cleaning your house and you're like, who are these Magi? It's the three wise men. And the reason why we think there are three is because there's three gifts. And so we attach one person to each gift. It could have been 20. We know it's
Some
plural,
people
so it's
listen.
more than
Some people go all together in on a gift.
yeah.
I mean,
And these are really expensive gifts. So,
yeah, put my name on one of the gifts too. Just if you're going to be going, just put my name on there
right,
too.
right. And I also will not rule out that this might be a part of the Jewish faith out in the diaspora or way out away from Jerusalem. That maybe they are. Maybe one of them is. Maybe who knows? But
Well, we
uh,
don't know those specific details, so we're not gonna assume. But the purpose of the reading is to, I think, and this is what we were talking about before we hit record, is
mhm.
that the world and the people in it are going to have very distinct reactions to the birth of the Savior, to the birth of the Messiah, the birth of Jesus.
And
And
why do you
as
think
we
that?
well, because we see it in the text. So if I can highlight a couple pieces in the text, do you mind?
You
Oh, go
see
ahead.
it
You're
in
gonna
the
read.
text, but do we see it also in everyday life?
Yes, we see it in everyday life, but first I want to put it in the text, right?
Okay,
So, so just reading, briefly, in the time of King Herod, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, wise men came from the east to Jerusalem, asking, "Where is the child who has been born King of the Jews?" So, if you are king and you
hmm
hear that there's a king been born, you are
hmm
going to be a little nervous because in all of history, there's usually
hmm
only one king at a time. And if there's more than one, that doesn't last very long. One of them usually dies, right? And
Yeah,
so we've come to
exactly.
pay him homage. So when King Herod heard
Right,
this, he was frightened. So one of the reactions people can have is fear, right?
right.
And so why was King Herod afraid?
Uh, well, because I would have to look this up. I believe that Herod is not a descendant of like I believe that Herod became king as a puppet from
Right.
Rome, not actually through a divine birth line.
Correct. So he is worried about losing his power. He's worried
Well,
about
yeah,
losing his place in the world,
yeah,
right? While
right,
the wise men have come, they're curious. So their reaction is curiosity. Their
yeah,
reaction is a desire to know, right? That's what makes
hmm
them wise.
hmm
And so later on, we see that Herod secretly calls them because he's motivated by this fear to
hmm
then reach out and to try to kill the Messiah. And the last reaction, which I think is, or the last couple reactions in the text, which I think are very important, is towards the end. It says, "On entering the house, they saw the child with Mary, his mother, and they knelt down and paid him homage," meaning
hmm
they honored him. You
hmm
know, they showed him honor and respect and worship, right?
hmm
And
yes,
that's the reaction that we're called to have. So
hmm
we can see in our world today a very wide array, a wide variety of reactions, but I think many of them are still the same.
yeah, exactly. So typical New Revised Standard Version translation, they aren't giving the full flavor of what happened. And so for an entirely different reason, I had the Greek version
Yeah.
up. And the there is a verb to kneel and there's a verb to fall. Guess which one was used?
They prostrated themselves, is what they did.
They fell. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and the other thing is that the Greek word for homage is actually can also be used as to fall. So it's almost a repeating verb
Yeah.
that they were overwhelmed,
hmm
and with their overwhelming, they had joy, and then they hit the dirt. Um, so
Yeah. So I think let's tie this together for what we're talking about for our audience here, for those preaching with their lives and those going to be stepping into the pulpit, is
mhm,
that in our world, everybody's going to have a different reaction when they meet Jesus,
right,
or when they
right,
encounter him in the text, or encounter
yeah,
him in preaching, or however, because somebody has presented themselves and been Jesus to somebody. And
mhm,
the question I think we should be asking our congregations, starting with ourselves who are preaching,
Mhm.
is what is the face that I present to the world when it comes to Jesus? Am I presenting a Jesus that people are frightened of? Or am I presenting a Jesus that people want to do homage to, that people want to honor? Um,
Mhm.
I think that's a good place to start.
I think that's
The
a great
latter,
place to start.
yeah,
So if you can go
the,
back through the various emotions that people felt,
yeah,
um, just I think it's fascinating what you've come up with. So King Herod felt fear,
yeah,
right? Okay.
yeah,
And then the wise men felt joy,
yeah. They felt curiosity and joy.
curiosity. Well, curiosity brought them, but
Mhm.
and then because of their curiosity, they felt joy. Um, so, any other thoughts about
Well,
feelings?
well, I think that the other thing that I wanted to talk about is this is the time of year when we think about the birth of Jesus that we also think about birth stories. And
Yes.
I love a good birth story. When somebody tells me the story about how they were born and like the weird
Mhm.
things that happened or the fact that their dad fainted or whatever, you know.
Sure.
And I love those stories because everybody has one. And this is Jesus's story. But
Mhm.
the other thing is that around the birth of a child, there is so much activity and there's so much reaction to people. So, you know, some parents, like myself, I was very frightened at the birth of my first child because I'm like, this is something I've never even seen before in person. And then now this is happening, and I'm worried about, is my wife going to be okay? Like all those different things are coming. And then when I hold my son for the first time, the joke that I tell myself is the first thing that I remember saying is, I'm sorry that I'm going to mess this up.
Right.
You know, that many dads will confess to saying that. But there's
Yeah.
also, you know, there's joy, there's love, there's hope, there's all these different things, and there's a sense of the presence of God at the birth of every child. And
Mhm.
so I think when we begin to talk about in our churches, a good way to relate to people who have families is to say, just as you had anticipation or all mix of emotions when it comes to the birth of your children, the birth of Christ in our lives also causes a lot of emotions that we need to process. But
Mhm.
at the end of the day, it should be about falling at the feet of the Lord and just being overjoyed that this event has happened.
I right. I completely agree. Um, so the other approach is that this is a one-time event.
Mm.
Somebody gets born, and that's it.
Yeah.
And and it changes you. Um, that there are things that happen that then repeat in our lives, and so even like people that are like, I have to go see the Rolling Stones because this is their last tour, and then they can continue to tour. So it's but this is one of those things where it is a one-time event, and it is a life-changing thing. And then the same way is that um, we have the nativity is also a one-time event that tends to change our life, and so
Well,
that's just one
I
thing.
liken it. So I liken it to this. Um, I remember reading the Bible or listening to a sermon when I was 12
Uh-huh.
on this same text, right?
Hmm.
And then I listened to it again when I was 25.
Mm.
And then I listened to it again at 35 and at 45. And each time I was changed differently
Mm.
because I'm a different person. The text remains the same, but my context and my life are different for that. So hearing about the birth of Jesus as a parent is very different than hearing it as a single person. That's okay. I'm waiting to see, hopefully years from now, what it will sound like when I'm a grandparent,
Right.
right?
Exactly.
You know, or as
Yeah.
I'm coming to the end of my life. Now, this is a little foreshadowing that we're talking about here. But remember that in the birth narrative of Jesus with the Magi, we're always getting a glimpse. When we talk about the gifts that are given, we're always getting a glimpse of who this Jesus will be and how he will die. And that is important too. We don't like to talk about it. We want to keep it very light and happy on Christmas Eve and during the Christmas season. But we also have to remember there's a lot of foreshadowing. There's
Hmm.
something in the background that we're going to need to address very soon. And that is that this Messiah that has come into the world has come to give himself for us.
Hmm. He has. And then there's the gifts.
Yeah.
So why do we give gifts on Christmas? It's because the Magi gave gifts to Jesus. Jesus is a gift to us. Mary and Joseph reorienting their lives and saying yes to this child. All of these things are gifts, and once we receive the gift, then we're never the same. One of the things that Alex and I were discussing before we hit record, and I didn't know if I was going to bring it up, but I thought I'll bring it up. And that the very last sentence, and for the Magi, and having been warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they left for their own country by another road. So that can be just a very practical thing of
Mhm.
that they decided not to go back by Herod, but went home a different way. But spiritually speaking, another road is that you have now enlightenment, you now have an epiphany, you now have new knowledge, and that when Alex and I, when we both agreed to follow Jesus and to submit to him and have him as the Lord of our life, we then started traveling on another road. It is a different type of road. And that road itself is a gift. It has all different revelations and things that come along that type of path.
Well, I think there's a lot of implications in that because when we begin to think about everybody who encounters Jesus is transformed in some way.
Hmm.
You can't meet Jesus in an open way, being open, and not be transformed. That's what's so amazing about the power of Jesus. And
Hmm.
so the Magi are the ones who bring gifts, but they are the ones who receive,
Yes,
right? That's
exactly.
the irony,
Yeah, that's the.
and so what I'm still in the mood of Christmas Eve and Christmas Day as I'm thinking about this.
Mhm.
But as we are beginning a new year, some of us may be thinking, okay, Christmas has passed. The flavor of Christmas is still kind of in the air in the church.
Mhm.
What does this mean? What am I supposed to be doing with my life right now that is a reflection of this reality of the birth of the Messiah? And I want to go back to talking about, having that first child and how it changes you.
Mhm.
Um, I drove different, right?
Mhm.
I looked at my home different. We baby proofed everything, even though the kid was 3 days old.
Yeah.
Um, all those things. So our lives should be different. How we treat people, how we think of ourselves and others, the roads that we're walking on spiritually should be different. And if they're not, we need to look around and say, do I need to turn around?
Mhm.
Um, in that way. The other text for this particular Sunday is Joseph hearing in a dream that he needs to flee and he needs to go away to Egypt so that they can avoid, Herod. So
Mhm.
a lot of changes are taking place. Um, what's something else that we need to be thinking about and talking about as we celebrate the first Sunday really of the year?
Yeah, so we originally thought we might get into eschatology, and that is, and you had put a little bit out there, and that so eschatology is study of the escha or of the end,
Hmm.
and the um, the the belief that Jesus will return, and that you have a particular belief, which I think is a fantastic belief, that when he returns, people will have the same type of feelings they had
Yeah.
with his birth. And so some will be afraid, like King Herod. Some will fall down on their face and pay him homage. And others will just be overwhelmed, right? And that you would ask the another road question, the spiritual question of how is it that you think you would receive? And some of that was how has Jesus been presented to you, or how you representing Jesus to others might be how
Yeah.
they receive.
Well, there's in the background of all this, there's a a very popular Christian song with a very popular Christian story, because there was a movie attached to it called "I Can Only Imagine."
Oh yeah.
Which will I fall at, what is the reaction I'm going to have?
Right.
And I think that I am blessed that I've had so many positive experiences of Jesus, that when I think of meeting the Savior, either because I've died or because he has come back, is that really I think I'm just going to want to hug Jesus
Nice.
and be held, and hold and be held by Jesus in such a way that there's a rule at Disneyland or Disney World where if you're one of the characters, like if somebody hugs you, you're not allowed to end the hug first. The
Oh
the
wow.
person hugging you has to end the hug. So it's not like the character's pulling away from you. And I don't know why
Right.
I just thought of that, but I just think of like embracing Jesus. Jesus is never the first to let go of the hug. You know,
Nice.
he's never the one to let go of the embrace first. So for me, eternity would be holding and being held by Jesus for as long as I wanted, as long as I needed.
Right.
Um, but
So what what if our
eschatological,
reaction
Mhm.
what if our
Go ahead.
reaction to the return of Jesus is the same reaction that we have when we see somebody we love who has just been born? And your reaction was, I'm sorry, I'm going to mess this up. Uh, and that when Jesus returns, your first answer is, I'm sorry, I messed this up.
Well, I
That
think I think
would
there
be
will.
highly appropriate for him.
I think, like I said, everybody's going to have a different reaction, but I think there's a couple reactions that are going to be universal. I think people will want to know this is real.
Yeah.
We live in an age right now where one day they're going to project AI into the real world as a hologram, and we're going to wonder if anything's real at all. So there'll be a sense of curiosity, like the Magi had,
Hmm.
about, is this real? Can it be true? When news reports are coming in and all these other things. But at the
Hmm.
same time, there will also be a universal sense of this is true. Jesus will present himself in such a way that there will be no doubt,
Hmm.
as real as our own flesh, which takes us all the way back to the beginning of what we were talking about, which is the presentation of Jesus as a human being, that it
Hmm.
cannot be anything but real because Jesus becomes flesh for us.
Yeah. Yeah. For whatever reason, Herod, who again is not Jewish, was appointed to do this stuff. Um, that he realized it was real,
Hmm.
that a king has been born. That the religious leaders found in Scripture that that in fact a child will be born. That he started to get all the proof texting that he needed
Yeah.
to know that this was real. And so what I hear you saying is that with the return of Christ, that we too will know. Um,
Yeah. I mean, do I want it to be real?
yeah, yeah.
I mean, kind of looking at the last part of our episode here in the last 10 minutes or so, I think this is a worthy conversation to have, because we're going to meet Jesus in several different ways.
Hmm.
Some of them with a deep sense of finality, as in when we die or in the second coming.
Right.
But let's just talk about in our daily life for a moment. Do I want the presence of Jesus to be real? Because it will mean significant and lasting change in my life. Am I going to be like Herod, who doesn't want the structure around me that I have built in my own little kingdom, my own little fiefdom,
Hmm.
to be broken down and surrendered to Jesus?
Yeah. It's an interesting. So we're heading to the season of Epiphany, and I love Epiphany, and that's where you get these new thoughts and new ideas. And clearly, this reading is drawing us directly into that season where we've come from a very busy time of getting ready for Christmas and then the celebration of Christmas, and
Hmm.
now we are in a pondering of trying to put it all together.
Hmm.
And some take a little bit of time off. As mentioned, I'm on a cruise right now, that some people take some time off to rest and to reflect on this. And I really hope that that it's the joy, it's the falling down and worshiping, it's the the sense of the gifts that are just overwhelming. Incidentally, Mary and Joseph are not recorded in this passage um,
Other than
about
being present.
what they said with Mary there they presented him, um, but I imagine Mary and Joseph were overwhelmed. I imagine that Joseph, when he had his dream that he had to flee, which means he has to leave his work, he has to leave his job.
His family.
Yeah, like how am I going to be able to afford this? And then they're like, oh wait, we have some gifts here that what was given have those gifts have street value 2,000 years ago. They still have street value today. They
Gold is very
are,
valuable today. I will
yeah,
attest to that.
they were given commodities, and some of the commodities were very lightweight and easy to store. Obviously, the gold is not, but it is something that helped them on their journey. And so, my hope for this second Sunday of Christmas is that the things that you need for your journey, that you will be aware of it either through a dream, through somebody visiting from the east,
Mhm.
be surprised by that journey will have gifts that come and that will help propel you on that journey.
So I want to sum it up in this way to kind of bring everything kind of back together.
Okay.
That is, the Magi took a journey of discovery, confident, not knowing what they were going to find, but very confident that they were going to find the Messiah.
Hmm.
And when they find the Messiah, they pay him homage. They fall down in
Hmm.
his presence and just are completely open to him, right?
Yeah.
Each of us at the beginning of this new year in 2026 are going to be asked, are we ready to take this spiritual journey? Are we going to be curious enough? Are we going to be open enough to look for Jesus? But at the same time, it's really Jesus who has come to find us. So can we be found? Can we allow ourselves to be found? And so if you're preaching with your life, if you're preaching in the pulpit, I think that's a good question to start asking people as they begin this journey of the new year and start getting into everything that 2026 is going to be about. That before we go down that, are you stepping into that journey?
Hmm. Yes. Um, and for the gifts that come along the way. So whether it's a star, whether it's at night, you're looking up and you see it. And you know what's interesting? Just suddenly dawned on me. Both dreams and the star are only visible at night.
Yeah.
Well, that. We should
That'll
do a
preach.
whole different episode, right? Yeah,
That'll preach.
yeah. So, folks, you're welcome. At 27 minutes, suddenly he came up with something to preach on.
Um,
Because I believe, and I've got Phyllis Tickle. One of them had said, "God does God's best work at night." Um, yeah, and this is one of those signs of it. So, speaking of gifts, Alex, you are a gift to me. Our friendship is a gift as well,
you're a good.
and I'm sure that while I'm out on this cruise, I miss our chats, but we'll be chatting again soon.
Yes, we will. And for those of you who are beginning a new year, we just welcome you so much. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Share this with somebody who may need to hear it to encourage them in their day. And we're thankful for you, and we'll catch you in the next one.
God bless.